A lawsuit has been filed by the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, asking the Federal High Court in Lagos to compel the federal government to disclose details of proposed payments of 729 billion naira to 24.3 million poor Nigerians, including logistics for the payments, list of beneficiaries, and whether the payments will be made in cash or through bank verification numbers or other means. Serap, in the suit filed against the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Sadiya Umar Farouk, is seeking an order directing and compelling the federal government to clarify whether the proposed payment to poor Nigerians is part of the 5.6 trillion naira budget deficit. It is also seeking an order directing and compelling the federal government to explain the rationale for paying 5,000 naira to 24.3 million Nigerians for 6 months, which translates to 5% of the country's budget of 13.6 trillion for 2021. No date has been fixed for the hearing of the suit.
Well, Arise News analyst MAHMUD JEGA joins us now to take a look at this development concerning Serap actually suing not just the federal government, but particularly the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Thank you so much, MAHMUD, for joining us. Well, according to Serap, they're saying that this planned sum of 729 billion is about 5% of the country's budget, which is quite concerning, although they are alluding to the fact that it's a fundamental human right for the country to take care of its vulnerable. But they're complaining that this money, we need to see the rationale, because there's been a lot of complaints, especially how monies were distributed during the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw the fallout of all that happened. The so-called vulnerable poor, we saw how they went into some of these warehouses. But let's get your reaction, really, to this lawsuit that has been filed.
Well, I agree entirely with Serap. Number one, the amount is huge, more than 700 billion naira. And you want to distribute it to more than 24 million people, which is a huge number of people, over a long period of time, which is 6 months. So it's quite a complicated process. And it is very important to have the utmost transparency in the handling. Otherwise, really, it could result in chaos like we had during the COVID interventions. What I'm not sure of is whether a court is the best place to bring out this information. I would have preferred, for example, that this matter be subjected to a hearing by a National Assembly committee, so that all the responsible officials will be there, all the stakeholders will be there. It will probably be televised, newsmen are there, and a lot of questions will be asked. Because if it is a court order, possibly some kind of document or paper will be filed, and it may not answer all the questions, and there may be no opportunity for follow-up questions. So I would have thought that to press for a thorough hearing by an important National Assembly committee would bring out the facts and the figures better than a court case. That's my own thinking.
But how germane was, government action, 5,000 naira for a period of 6 months or 24.3 million Nigerians? How do you think that has really impacted on those poor Nigerians? Has it in any way moved them out of poverty? Has it helped in their development?
They are supposed to be the most vulnerable, the poorest and most vulnerable Nigerians. To that category of people, 5,000 naira in a month might help to ameliorate some impossible problems.
With the inflation in the country?
I don't expect 5,000 naira to bring anyone out of poverty on a sustainable basis. At best, you will use it and rush and buy some small items of food. So I don't know whether the program was thoroughly thought out, because it would be better to do a kind of program that will pull people out of poverty and put them on the path of sustainable earning of income. But
Absolutely.
If all you do is a small amount, I don't think it will take anybody.
Well, the president had said that he has this plan of lifting 100 million people out of poverty in a period of 10 years. Let's not forget, as it stands right now, Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. And as it stands, over 83 million people live below the poverty line. But looking at the 5,000 naira, yes, it might not be a big deal to some people, but we've seen explanations from the government to say, okay, it's not everything, but it's something for you to actually start your life. But the issue that Serap is having is an issue a lot of other observers had concerning how this cash distribution was done. They were giving direct cash. And the government said the reason why that was happening is the people in the local communities might not have bank accounts. So the BVN does not, suffice here. So how can we get this money to the hands of people where there's no corruption, and of course we can have these people traced? Well, we need to know where these monies are going.
This is one of the big issues that should be sorted out at a public hearing. Last year at the beginning of the pandemic, when the president announced that there was going to be direct intervention, we all saw the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs on television. She carried some bags of money, went to, I think, Kwali, put them on a table, and people started lining up. That was a horrible way of intervening, and I don't think that kind of thing can be accounted for at all, because how do we know who got what, how many people? So, but on the other hand, the government may be correct that if you are talking about the poorest and most vulnerable Nigerians, those ones may not have bank accounts. Or BVN, but still we must work out the best, safest, most accountable method of how this money is distributed, and monitor whether it is having the desired effect at all. Because otherwise you are just throwing away very good money, 700 plus billion. If you use it to revive the vital sectors of the economy that will prop economic activity, that might be a better
like a Jalkuta Steel company.
I don't know about Jakuta. It's a huge, it's a huge drain pipe for 40 years. But certainly there are some sectors like the small-scale industries that if you ginger them, they will employ a lot more people and money will circulate better. And we go back to this old saying that it's better to teach people how to fish than to give them just small pieces of fish.
Well, we know that there's a lot of intervention programs and skills acquisition that, besides the government, even NGOs have got that going on. But at the end of the day, poverty is a major problem. Even with the inflation rates like Christian spoke about, food inflation is still high, even though we're seeing growth in the GDP, but it's not really translated to the ordinary man on the street. But how can we get these people to live like they're humans, which they are?
Well, it's very important, but taking people out of poverty still requires a comprehensive program. It's not just giving money. The former Director General of NDE made this point very well, that you see, like in Nigeria, when you talk about investment, small-scale industry, people, the first thing they will tell you is that it's a capital problem, they don't have the money. But it's more than money. If someone does not have even the basic skills of bookkeeping and running a business, even if you give him money, very soon the money will dissipate. In this country, we see that small-scale industries have a high mortality rate. Today, you see a very nice small restaurant, you eat food, you come back next month, it is gone. So it's more than just pumping money. You have to give people the skills to be able to learn a trade and to sustain it.
Madam MAHMUD JEGA, Arise analyst, thanks so very much for shedding more light on Serap's lawsuit asking for the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs to account for over 700 billion naira distributed at the onset of the pandemic to help cushion the effects of the lockdown, particularly on the poor the poorest amongst them.